All right, welcome to episode 33 of the War Room. We have a new employee of Triple D, Brian Wood.
All right, man. Excited. Very excited.
Um, yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. So this has kind of been. It seems like it's almost been a foregone conclusion for quite a while now. How much we've talked, but it's official now. So you're going to come on board. You're going to inspect trucks for us, and
Yep.
just be a part of the crew. So I appreciate you doing that, man.
Well, I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to be a part of the show, to lend my, as much expertise as I can to the truck class. It's a class that I believe in heavily, and I'm excited to do my part and to push this thing forward even more.
And let's talk a little bit about that. I think that this decision, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's as much as you wanting to represent the trucks as it is anything. I mean, of course, we get along great. You see the vision of everything that we're trying to do, but really the fit here is, you're taking a stance for the truck guys and really want to get them as big a stage as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Having run this show last year and being lucky enough to come away with a win and get to experience that feeling and just see what could be for our class. I see these moments that the car guys get to experience on these big stages year in and year out. And I just, I think it's just so awesome they get to do that. And I'm like, well, what about us truck guys? I think our class is only going to continue to grow. I think it has to. Into the future. And I think more and more people are going to be a part of it. And I just want to be an ambassador for this class and in whatever rule set that is, whatever capacity it is. I just believe in it and I enjoy being a part of it. So I'm glad to be a part of the King of Ohio and the Triple D team to do my part in that respect for sure.
Well, on our side, we're thrilled, and we're very excited. I told you this yesterday. When guys like you come along, we don't let them go. So we're dragging you on this side of it, and it's a really interesting side. But most importantly, on this side of it, you have to have true professionals, and that's what the
Mhm.
drivers expect. That's what they deserve, and you're a guy that can definitely deliver that in the truck class.
Yeah, and that's always the goal. I just believe that I can develop relationships with these guys. I know a lot of them already, and there's more out there that I want to reach. We just kind of always look within our own borders. Whether it's the state of Ohio or surrounding states of Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. But I want to reach further than that. I want to develop relationships with these guys, and I think with my knowledge of trucks and my passion for them, I can speak their language and hear them and be able to convey that to you and the rest of the team and say, hey, this is what we need. This is what we should do. And, hopefully, that yields, more people wanting to be a part of this.
And that's exactly what you guys need. And you guys put on a great show. We're all about entertainment. Everybody that sees the trucks run walks away and says, "Wow, that was an awesome show." So the recognition, getting a guy that speaks the truck language with across the country. I mean, you're not just an Ohio guy. I mean, you've been around the country. You definitely know the who's who, and to be able to have a guy like you to represent the trucks is just it's special. It's what the sport needs.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the key is when you're building a team or you're putting any sort of a team together, whether it's Derby or whatever, you want to make sure you have the right people in the right positions. And to me, it just feels like a calling to me. This is something that I've always wanted to do. And there's obviously a disappointment that I can't run again, but I'm willing to make that sacrifice and be a part of the bigger picture, and I'm excited to do that.
Sometimes that gets overlooked too, and I mean, even on my role, I don't get to run as much as I'd like, but there's a bigger picture at play here, and it feels like you're still going to get to run. All right, you're still going to get to compete. You've got your trophy, but it feels like there is a bigger calling here. It feels like there is, there's something that there's been a lot of organization talk. There's been a lot of people you know, it's kind of died off, I think, the last couple of weeks, but there's been a lot of talk of pushing the sport forward, and that's got to continue. And how does that continue if no one leads the way, you know? So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some people, out there might, look at it as like, okay, we've heard this over and over again, but I think the continued um, pushing of the agenda or pushing of the conversation really highlights how important it is. And there's an opportunity that we have to, you know, take part in here and take advantage of. And everybody else seems to have done it in all the other motorsports. Why not us? Why not us? And it's only going to enhance the entire sport across the board, from the county fair level on up. And, it's just an overall positive, good thing that we need to do.
it kind of gets cliche at times, you know, the things that we're talking about, but it's true. I mean, like you said, all other motorsports have organized. They've got to that point, and you know, we got to get there. We have to get there, and it takes a group of people to come together. So the conversations are certainly happening. And now, whether anything comes of those conversations, it's to be determined, I guess. But um, last year, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, I didn't hear a lot of these conversations happening. You know, so at least they're happening now.
Yeah, and that's the first step, is to get people talking and thinking about what could be. And once you start getting people talking, then that's when ideas start to spread. That's when ideas start to become a possibility. And you talk about things that people are like, oh no, that'll never happen, it'll never happen. And then pretty soon, impossibilities are like, oh well, maybe it's not so hard. Maybe this mountain is only a molehill. We just have to have a little bit of courage and go after it. And you never know what we can accomplish. So I think it's very realistic that we can make this thing, a mainstream thing, and bring it to a much wider audience. And that's what I want to be a part of.
What do you think are some of the hesitations of that? Like you know, when people say that it's not possible, where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think, there's the historical factor of it's always been this way. It's always been something in some people's minds. So you train yourself to accept the sport or an idea. It could be anything. It doesn't just mean demolition derby, but anything. It has to be this way. You know, People don't like change. Um, Beyond that, when ideas start to get to that level, when it becomes that big, people may not understand how to get there. So when they don't understand how to get there, it's automatically assumed that it's this insurmountable task versus just a challenge. And anything worthwhile is going to have challenges. Anything worthwhile is going to have roadblocks and things that you're going to have to beat and think and figure out. And um, you know, but once you do that, how much more rewarding is the end result? I mean, anything I've ever earned that's been something that I'm proud of, I didn't just go out and it just fell in my lap. I had to go deserve it. So I think this is the same thing. And I think if people would just understand that and, play a part in that, or just at least have belief in it, that goes a long way. Just believing in something goes a long way.
Yeah, because there's like two different things that are happening, right? There's people that just maybe just say, "Hey, look, don't really believe," but then there's like straight naysayers. I didn't. It almost like that's the part that I don't quite understand. You know, I've seen a lot of posts where people are just like, "It'll never be this. I never want it to be this. It's never going to be that. Everybody's living in fantasy land." Blah 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 blah. Right? Like
Right.
I just don't. It seems kind of negative, and it seems kind of counterintuitive to progressing the sport. You know, so like I struggle to understand or relate to that because nothing's impossible if you set your mind to it. I mean, you could do a lot of things. I mean, I'm not saying you could become Michael Jordan tomorrow, but obviously that requires some talent and skill. But a lot of things are just hard work. Hard work pays off, like you said, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think that, there's a lot of people out there who, possess a lot of really good ideas and great skills that apply to demolition derby, and they, they integrate into many other things in life too, whether it's their job that they do on a daily basis, and we're just looking for those people to maybe step a little bit outside of their comfort zone and say, hey, have you thought about this or you thought about that, and do it in a positive and constructive way. I mean, you have naysayers, and usually that's just emotionally charged stuff. It doesn't really necessarily come from a background of substance or data to prove it. I don't mind having a conversation with anybody. Just tell me what your concerns on it are, and at least be open to the idea that I can change your mind by facts, by truth. That should win, right? And I think if people would be more receptive to that, in that group of naysayers that you're talking about, I think we'd make a lot more progress in this sport, as a collective group.
Yeah, it feels like we, instead of like going, back and forth, let's just agree that there's one common goal, and that is, hey, look, if Brian, if you come to me and you say, hey, look, I want to organize the sport, and you come up with some way to get that done, I mean, it would be. It wouldn't. I mean, I got to listen, man. I want to hear. I want to hear how you're going to pull this off. And the thing is, I think it benefits everybody. I think it's from the top of the sport, it benefits those guys. It benefits, all the way down to just the interest that we could grow at county fairs. And it's just going to trickle down, I think, the interest, if something like that was to ever get done. And that's where I struggle to see, because I think, some of the naysayers will probably benefit the most from it, with their role that they currently have in demolition derby, whether they be a promoter or announcer or whatever. Like they're gonna reap some of this benefit, and it would be nice if they would help row the boat to get there, right? Help us out. There isn't really an end picture to paint here. We kind of blindly leading into the dark, like having these conversations. What does this look like? What will it look like? I don't know. But as long as we move forward, and what we're moving forward is based on, principles of furthering the sport and the interest of the sport, I don't think we can go wrong.
Right. And the advantage that we have is there's nobody telling us no. I mean, there's no government agency or collective group of people out there saying you're not allowed. We got to figure out how to do it around that kind of a voice. We have full permission to go out and do whatever we want. And, I would just say that, if people would be more receptive to listening, to understand, and to you use the word educate people, and it's not a bad word. It's not a negative thing. It's, knowledge is power. I crave it. I want to learn as much as I can about anything, and there's no limit to how much you can learn and understand. Why not apply it to this? And at the same time, derbying can be as big as you want it to be in your own mind. If you don't want to be a part of something huge, you can still derby at the county fair level and enjoy that atmosphere. And organization is simply going to make that better. It's going to make it a bigger deal. And I just think I really just believe that. And I don't know what the downside of it would be. I just don't.
Yeah, and I would love to, hear what is the downside of it, because you hear like people say, "Oh, the good old days. It was fun back in the good old days." I never really understood what that means. Like, I think it just means something different to every person. It's just like a phrase they throw out there, but even when I poke and pry to try to get an answer of what that is, it seems like you'd never get an answer. What that is.
No,
what is
right.
the good old days?
Well, it's nostalgia, right? And I would humbly suggest that the good old days are the days we're in right now. And we'll look back on these days and say, remember that time? Remember when it was like this? Listen, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I remember watching derby at that time. And it was different because that was the landscape at the time. And what you got to do to progress into the future is you have to appreciate the past to understand the present, to prepare for the future. And there's nothing wrong with appreciating those days of history and what it used to be, and acknowledging it, and talking about those shows or those people, or those times. Like, yeah, it was great back then because you could buy a 70s GM wagon for a couple $100. But it's all relative. It's all economics. It's all relative to today. I mean, everything is relative. So we have to adapt and move forward. I just would like people to exist more in the present and into the future versus, well, derbying used to be. Well, derbying's never been better than it's ever been. I mean, it's bigger and better than it's ever been. And I dare you to challenge that fact. I really do. Like, it's more accessible. It's more available to anybody in the world. I don't see how you could possibly argue that.
Yeah, well, there's really not a lot of argument that I think that people make besides the emotional, ties to the past. Um, I ask you this: has Derbian, because in this same argument, has Derbian ever failed to not progress? What I mean by that is, have the builds ever went backwards? Has the money has it ever cost less next year than it would this year?
No.
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 No, it never has, right? Everything is constantly progressing. And I think if we sit here and we think about that and we acknowledge that, it's never gotten cheaper from year to year. It's never going to get cheaper. And there's a supply and demand problem with cars out there in which we're battling crushers, junkyards that won't sell, race guys that inherently there's so many variables involved here that are going against us. It's never going to make our sport cheaper. It just isn't.
Right.
And in the car world, the full frame cars, they're not even being produced anymore.
Right.
So, there's a lifespan on that. So when people say that, it's like, guys, but reality is it's never been that. It's never going back. It's always going to progress. So I feel like our only option is year after year, instead of asking more money to come out of the pockets of our the clientele, the drivers, right? Our only option is really to get outside money in the sport and start having that outside money and use our influence to the masses to make sure that we can move in unison. So that way we can keep the outside money in the sport. So that way it's a little easier on your pocketbook next year than it was this year, rather than always asking more.
Right. And just imagine back in the 80s and 90s, if the people who ran cars back then, who were, they were buying those wagons for $200, $500, whatever they cost back then. Imagine if they had the wherewithal back then to see into the future, and how many of those cars got sent to the crusher after one show with all those good parts on them still, and all those things that could still be used. We need to, I think it's more prevalent today. I think people are getting more out of that today in an attempt to save things, which is great. But that's the kind of attitude and vision we need to have in the future to keep those costs down, to make it affordable as possible. And like you said, we need to bring money in. We need to bring money into the sport. It's been a certain way for too long, and it's not worked. It's not worked for us as the Derby community. We just keep doing it because it's just so much fun. How could you not love it? Who gets to go out and crash a car on purpose? Us. That's it. So we keep doing it because it's fun, but we need to start thinking about sustainability into the future. And money is a huge part of that. It's the biggest conversation piece I see and read on Facebook and anywhere else is money, 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 money. Well, that ought to tell you something. It matters, and we need to focus more on that.
But it's often a subject that people don't want to touch. I've talked about it and brought it up. I've been in plenty of conversations with the organization, and it never seems to lead the conversation. Money. Well, guys, I'm here to tell you, if you don't find out how to get money and keep money in the sport, nothing else matters. You can have any idea in the entire world, but if you don't keep money in the sport, it's not going to stay healthy, and that seems to be like where the conversation starts and then always dies as soon as you get to that aspect of it. And I'd really, I wish we could have better, more thoughtful conversations on how we actually keep money in the sport, because the entertainment's not a problem. We
Right.
entertain. We get people in the stands. We have plenty of clientele, the drivers that are going to run. I mean, we've got all the other aspects of it. We generate the money. We generate the entertainment. We just don't keep it in our sport.
Yeah, if you think about it too, especially in the last several years with how the youth classes are being pushed and saying, there's this, and rightfully so, there's this, joint effort to really focus on the youth and the future of the sport. When people talk about that, but at the same time, they don't want to have a conversation about how to sustain the sport for those young people to continue to do into the future, it doesn't make any sense to me. So it's like, okay, well, you talk about youth, you want the youth to be the future of the sport, but you don't want to talk about how we can make it viable for them to do that and for them to continue on in the future. And that's a big talking point that I think people just don't think about. It's like those go hand in hand, and we have to be able to have that conversation. It might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary, and that's just the real world. That's the
Why do
real
you
world.
think that first piece is covered, and really, quite frankly, everyone's doing a really good job at the first piece, right? Getting the youth, identifying the youth, building up the youth, but for what, right? Like, what is when the youth get of age, let's say 5 years from now, what are the youth doing it for, all with all this training, with all this knowledge, with all this skill set that they're developing? What is the Derby world going to look like in 5 years? There needs to be some more emphasis on that, because I'm not sure what does it look like in 5 years if we do nothing.
Right. And, I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth or question anybody's motives behind why they say it. I think part of it is, it sounds good to say, well, I want to be associated with that because it's a good thing. It sounds good. Some people say it and aren't invested in it themselves. They don't have kids, who are of age to start building cars and learning about it. So, you know, beyond just understanding that getting the youth involved is always a good idea, and teaching the youth anything is a good idea. Well, they don't really think about how do we make that happen, or when we talk about what their experience is going to be 5 years from now, what does that look like, and how can we help create that foundation for them? And the ultimate goal, I think, is to teach them how to create that foundation so they can do the same thing, for their kids, and so on and so forth. And that's how you make things last. That's how you build it's a legacy effect right there, and that's how you make that happen.
Yeah, and I think the only, we don't have these conversations, and we certainly don't have them publicly to be, throw shade and cast shade at people. But what we do is say, hey, look, you got a great piece here. Let's elaborate on it. Let's see where it's excelling and where its downfalls are. For example, a perfect example of this is Freebie, probably the
Hmm.
most skilled youngster that's ever walked the face of the earth in Derby, as accomplished as anybody. I don't even know if it's really a debate. I mean, the guy has 30, 40 wins. He's 17 years old. Um, he was whooping up on the youth. You know, what do you do there? Do you make a change? Do you whatever you do, like that's got to be talked about, because I mean, he was whooping up on those guys. Do you just say, hey, look, that's the way it is, we're going to have little Freebie as a once in a generational talent, and that's just the way it is, and these guys are going to take their lumps from a 16 or 17-year old rather than a 40-year-old?
Hmm.
But then on the other side of it, Freebie moves on from the youth, and now he's kind of thrown to the wolves, and he's out there taking his lumps. It seems like we could structure that whole process a little bit better, a little bit easier for these guys to move up through, because, I mean, let's face it, these cars, the series, everything is much more competitive than it was 20 years ago. And
Yep.
that's just the reality. I mean, it costs more. there's more horsepower. There's just more essential things to be competitive that you have to have these days that you didn't have to have. I mean, think of the skill set required just to compete that you have to have at 17 years old compared to what you had to have 20 years ago. I mean, it's a totally different skill set. So to talk about these things and address them and find out where the shortcomings are, so that way they can be addressed. It shouldn't be taken as shade. It should be taken as, hey, look, we're building a foundation, and that was the next block. Is we're going to put the next block in piece, and we're going to talk about what we saw, what we didn't see, where we would like it to go. It doesn't seem like enough of those conversations are happening publicly, at least.
Right. No, I don't disagree. And in any other sport out there or entertainment product that's put out there for people, there's a starting point, and there's different things you have to achieve along the way in order to get to that top tier. And that's there for a reason, because it works. Even in the workforce, unless you're some kind of Rain Man, you don't just go into a Fortune 500 company and you're running it. I mean, a lot of these guys who have achieved a lot in life, they started out at the beginning, and we have to do that the same way in derbying as they do in, racing, or basketball, football. Name your sport. There's levels for a reason, because each level prepares you for the next, and it teaches you something you didn't know before, but is going to be applied to the next level to help you continue to be successful, if you choose to do that, if you choose to want that. And simply having the opportunity to do that, is something that we don't necessarily have in derby. We don't have that opportunity, and I think it'd be extremely beneficial for the sport and to be able to offer that.
Yeah, and I think some people get a little hesitant or scared when he starts talking about that. Like, hey, not everyone wants to take it to the next level. Well, you don't have to. The greatest thing about this is there's more classes, more availability, there's more options than there's ever been. If you're comfortable in your lane, hey man, stay in your lane. But don't hate on us for trying to create a path, to a possible, a profession here, right?
Right. I completely agree. And that's the message I think people really need to understand, is that any talk of organization or any suggestion of it is for that reason alone. It's for the opportunity. It's to create an opportunity for this to be a full-time job for somebody doing something that they love to do. I mean, that's the goal of anybody when you get out, in the workforce. You grow up, you're going through school, you're doing all these things, and your ultimate goal is always, I want to feel like when I go to work, I'm not working. It's a pleasure to be there. It's something that I love to do. I mean, if you can achieve that in life, you've hit the jackpot. And this is just another way to do that. Provide that opportunity, and like I said, it doesn't diminish anybody else's experience or desire in any way. It's just, hey, if you want to go this route, there's the opportunity. If you don't, great, that's fine. And we hope that you have the best experience that you possibly can right where you're at and what you want to do. And it's always going to be there for you. And that's all we're trying to get at here, I think, when we talk about organization.
And to just daydream for a second, could you imagine there be a time when there's just a large group of people that got together somehow and made a living doing something they love to do? I mean, you look at it in different motorsports, they've done it, and it just doesn't. When you're in those conversations and you talk to those people, they're the same people we are. They just somebody along the way made a conscious decision that said, hey, look, we're pretty entertaining. Let's make a living doing this. Now that requires, some different things. To get sponsors in the sport, they're going to ask for certain things and whatnot. I've been in a lot of those conversations, man. We're not anywhere close to being able to appeal to what they want. But we can certainly start taking steps for sure. And that's the neat thing about it. I mean, if you just daydream and think, man, there's a possibility that something like this could happen. That's crazy.
Right, and everything started from somewhere, right? I mean, there's this comparison to NASCAR thing that comes up, and it almost makes me cringe when I hear it, because I think when it started to be brought up, I know what it was meant to be compared to in that way, but I think people take it as, oh, we have to be like NASCAR. No, 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 no. I don't think that's the goal, because we're two different things. But we look at, okay, how did they start? How did drag racing start? How did bull riding start? How did these things start, and how did they become a big deal? And how did they become as popular as they can? They had to start from nothing. They had to have.
Well,
And we're
NASCAR,
way ahead of that. Way ahead of nothing.
yeah, NASCAR never knew what it was going to become today. They had no idea.
You
They,
had guys running from the cops with liquor in the back of their cars. That's
yeah, that's where it came from. It
right.
was bootlegging. Like that's what it was. If you would have told those guys that they would be what they are today, they would just literally laugh at you. I mean, just hysterically. There's no way.
Right.
So like bull riding, you mentioned bull riding. I mean, those guys, I looked into that a little bit, and somebody actually sent me this, and they were like, "Man, have you ever looked into bull riding and how this works?" Those guys were looked at as wannabe cowboys. That's it. Bull riders. They're just wannabe cowboys, and that's just funny that now the stigma. I've never looked at a bull rider as a wannabe cowboy. I can tell you that. I looked at them as they're crazy. They have a dump truck to haul their selves in on.
Right.
I mean, how unbelievable is that? I've never
I mean,
even knew that.
that's basically what we do. We just have a steering wheel. So imagine when you lose steering, you're basically riding a bull in a big steel bull, and you get hit by other big steel bulls. I mean, we're crazy too. Like, why can't we sell that? Like, why can't we be as attractive as that?
It's the UFC with cars. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's grown men fist fighting, but with cars. Um, and probably a little less dangerous than actually UFC, because there's actually we actually have headgear and stuff on, but
Mm-hmm.
still dangerous, right? You still assume some risk, but that's entertaining, right? And to take those entertaining aspects of that and understand how to apply that in a world of
Right.
organization, and then how to then take another step forward and get people to pay you to do this. I mean, it sounds
Right.
like a dream. It sounds like a dream. I get it.
I mean, and when you think about entertainment, why is entertainment, why is it defined that way? What does that mean? What it really all comes down to is you're showing something, a product to people, and you're allowing them to put themselves, mentally in that position. Like, whether you're talking about, professional sports, any of them, or racing, or whether they're a singer, or they're an actor. You're going, what would it be like to be them in that moment and experience that? Guys who jump out of airplanes, or do crazy things on snowmobiles or dirt bikes. I mean, what would it be like to be that person? And you start to live through that, and that's why it's so entertaining. They want more of it, and I think we can provide that in a major. What would it be like to be sitting in that truck or that car in that track going 35 miles an hour and getting smoked, or laying on that heat ending hit to win, $100,000, something like that. Like, what would that be like? And I just think there's a lot of attractive opportunities there for people to be entertained by it.
Somebody's going to do it for 50,000 this year. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Wow.
So I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money, which is really cool. But yeah, man, I mean, we got to capture that, and we've got to get it out to the masses. NASCAR, in next week at this time, they're releasing something on Netflix. Everything that I've heard about the new NASCAR series that they're releasing on Netflix is like it is the greatest insight to our sport ever. And it's like,
Yeah.
man, like, that is awesome. I can't even wait to see that. But what if we could provide that? What if that's the missing link that we have? Rather than
Right.
be, crowned as hillbillies, kissing our sisters, cousin, uncle stuff. Like, because it seems like
Yeah.
every TV show that happens, like that's what it is, right? But I think we're selling. It seems like we're selling it wrong. We're looking at the entertainment aspect of this, and that kind of rubs people the wrong way too. When we introduce the format, and the format's about entertainment. It's about being able to sell entertainment and sell this. The team shows do the same thing. They're entertainment, but we've got a lot of I don't know, lack of understanding, I'll call it, from that. But that's how you sell a sport right there, is you start highlighting the things that sell.
Yeah, and for me personally, the amount of skills that I've learned just by building derby trucks and being in the shop, the things that I've had to teach myself how to do, or apply to be creative, or whatever it is, that's lifetime skills, man. And then the other stuff that the derby community provides people, the different causes out there. I mean, Crashing for Kids Cancer, for example, it's incredible. I mean, the amount of money people are willing to give, and the way people view each other within the sport is incredible. I mean, those are things we need to showcase to the masses who don't know about it, to say, look, we're not just a bunch of hillbillies out here hitting each other. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, there's definitely a part of it in that, but it's much bigger than that. It's much more important than that, and we can be a much bigger presence, if we choose to be. And that's really all it is. It's a choice at this point.
Yeah, it just feels like it's going to take a group of people to get an understanding and move in one direction. And what direction that is, none of us know. But it's going to take a group of people. All these people that I've organized, they had no idea where they were going. They didn't have all the answers. They just started saying, "Hey, look, we're going to march together. We're going to go this way. You need my support. What does that support look like? Oh, you need this, you need that. Okay, I'm in. You need me to be a competitor? I'm in. You need me to come over to the other side, because we need it. Well, like specifically you. I mean, we need a guy that really understands trucks, that can treat these guys right, that has competed at the highest level, and boom, paying it forward. There you go. And we need 20, 30, 100 more people just like that.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes taking that risk, and stepping out of the comfort zone and saying, you know what, I know I can do this. I know I can be a productive member to this. I know I have something to offer. Is the hardest part, because you're in your own life. You have other things that you got going on, whether it's kids, jobs, other commitments, other hobbies, and that's all fine, and that's all well and good. But hopefully there's some people out there who can say, you know what, I think what I know, and I'm willing to know, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than me, and who knows where it can go. Who knows the ripple effect of just throwing my stone in that pond, and I'm willing to find out. And I just decided for myself that, you know what, there's a need here, and I'm willing to be a part of it. And if I can be a part of this thing in any capacity, I'm going to. And the trucks was an easy choice for me. Not running is always tough. I want to run every show, and especially, I had a great time running the King of Ohio, but it's bigger than me, and I know that, and I want to sell that to everybody else out there who maybe hasn't gotten a chance to do it yet, or has been on the fence. I want to be an ambassador for the class and for the show and for the sport, and that's what it's all about for me.
Those terms that you just used there and that thought process seems to be, we're getting closer and closer to adopting exactly what you're talking about across the board. It seems like ambassadors, professionals, all those things that you were talking about, paying it forward. It seems like with every conversation, it gets a little bit closer. You capture. I mean, I imagine you're probably the same. I don't have a lot of conversations with people, and they literally walk away saying, this guy's a moron for talking about organizing the sport. They really don't. And I think it's just through these conversations and having you as an extension of Triple D at this point it's a home run because we know that you're a true believer. We know that you understand, although the picture might not be clearly painted, it might be a little murky of what exactly this all looks like. You're willing to help paint the picture, if you're asked. And that's what's
Mhm.
cool about this whole thing.
Yeah, and the guys who know me back home would probably laugh at you saying painting the picture because they know I like to paint, and flat black is my favorite color because I'm from Ohio. But um, but yeah, I mean, there's a fear of the unknown, but what's at stake at this point? It's not like this isn't a life and death situation. This is just an adventure into the unknown to find out what could be, and how successful we could be. And there's no limit. Like I said before, there's nobody telling us we can't. So what's the hesitation? Why not? If people are willing to do it, let's do it. Let's find out together, and you know, this could be an incredible thing. We have I can't even comprehend what this could be. I mean, because it's never been done. It's never been tried, and we don't have a model to look back on and go, well, this will never work. People say it has, but I don't believe that. I don't believe it's truly ever been tried. And there, I think if somebody wants to do it, if people want to band together and do it, it's right there in front of you. Go out and get it.
Yeah, it's I don't know when the time comes, or however, I know the conversation is started. So that's, I don't want to say the hardest part. The hardest part is following through. The ideas are easy.
Yeah.
Everybody has ideas of how to do things. It's the execution that really comes into play. So look, we're going into a new Derby year. It's 2024,
Hmm.
and it seems like more than ever, there's shows popping up all over the entire place. Like, I mean, there is so many shows. Everybody seems like they're on top of each other. Maybe it's just the social media part of this where everyone has their stuff out, so you're seeing it. But like, man, it just seems like there is just shows galore. How do you pick a show? How did you pick a show? How did you go about like, hey, this is where I'm going to run? It at one point in time it was always county fairs, and then it moved on to big shows, I assume. But has it changed at this day? Like, how do you go about it?
Well, it might be a little bit different for me than the car guys because I'm going to be honest. Us truck guys, we don't have the opportunities. You talk about shows, the bigger shows that you want to put them in. I don't like calling things national shows because I don't think that's accurate. I'll call them elite shows or premier shows. The truck guys, we just most of the time we don't have the opportunity to be a part of it. So for me, it was always simple. Start out at the county fair level and enjoy that atmosphere. It's what I grew up on. It's what I first fell in love with the sport with, and you know, hopefully, as the sport continues to grow and progress, there's opportunities. And then, you offered an opportunity for us at the King of Ohio, starting with the prequel to the King, and I went and watched that in Indiana there, and then I watched the first 2 years of the show and just kind of seen what it was about, and then I decided, you know what, I'm gonna run the show. Like this this is a really cool idea. I like the the credit that the trucks are getting here. I mean, I think that says a lot, and that's what ultimately led me to wanting to run it. And I wish more shows would follow suit because I think us truck guys have a lot to offer, and you know it's one thing to offer the show and then you get 4 or 5 trucks that sign up, but it's the question I always ask is, well, do you believe in the class? Did you even want it to begin with? Did you advertise it? Did you push it? Did you make it attractive? Like, I think that's the job of a promoter to do those things, and the history of the sport has always been focused around cars, and rightfully so, and I get that, and I have nothing against any car class, but the time will come, I'm telling you, the time will come when people are going to start going, oh, well, where are all these cars at now? We're running out of them. Well, what else can we derby? They're still making full size trucks to this day. You know,
So that foresight, right? To have that foresight and understand that, like that is literally going to happen. Um,
Yeah,
and we're going to have to make a transition. So that's part of the reason why we need organizations, so that way we could have the foresight to collectively say, well, our sport is transitioning over to trucks and small cars. And at
yeah,
some point, rather than just waking up in 10 years and a Crown Vic is now $5,500, you know, well, we're not going to stop crashing cars. I mean, heck, guys will crash lawnmowers. So, where are we going to turn to? Well, let's have some foresight. Let's understand where our sport is going, where it almost essentially has to go. Full size trucks are not going to stop being made, at least for the foreseeable future. And maybe that and mini cars really take over the show, eventually 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years from
mhm.
now.
Yeah. I that's the way I see it, and that's kind of the message that I like to give people is and it's not a demand. It's not. I don't shame them for running cars or anything like that. There's no shame in it. It's just, hey, have you ever given us a thought over in the trucks? Come check us out. For the most part, the people that I know and I run with and ran against, you know, we get along fairly well, and it's and we keep it simple. It's about derbying. It's about having a good time on the track, and you know, yeah, there's always going to be drama and issues to some extent, but we do a pretty good job of keeping that as low key as possible, and it's a more of a family than anything, and come be a part of us. We have a lot to offer you, and we're only going to get bigger. Come get with the group now, and be a part of the growth of it, and it's exciting to me.
How do you guys in that truck circle keep things so friendly and so just like what is going on? What are we missing? What can we apply from the truck world to the rest of the derby world? Because you guys do a great job. You guys are cordial. You congratulate each other. There isn't a ton of
Yeah.
fighting, infighting, and all that stuff. Tell us how you do that.
Well, I think and I wondered if it was just specific to where I run, but I went out to Blizzard Bash this past year, and I got a chance to talk to a lot of the guys out there, and they're from all those other states out there, Wisconsin and Kansas, and the usual states that run that show. And I got a chance to talk with those guys too, and it's the same kind of a mentality out there. There's a lot of just really good guys who talk to each other and know each other, and work together. And I think when you're part of something that you can collectively agree on something. And what we collectively agree on is that A, we love running trucks, and B, we want a bigger stage, and we want to be a bigger deal. And when you got that much in common, that's a really good foundation to work together under and or on top of, and we're able to do that. And like I said, it's not always perfect, but what class is, but it makes me want to continue to stay in trucks. I've had opportunities to run cars and be a part of that, and I'm not trying to shame any other class or say that they're worse, but I'll be honest with you. There's some of these car classes that I'm around, like it's constant drama, and it's for no reason. It's just baseless drama. I don't know what it. You would know more than I would, man. I mean, you're a car guy. Maybe you could explain that to me. Conversely here, but I just think us truck guys, we have a common goal, and we want to see it done.
I'm over here getting beat with a stick, man, for trying to talk about organizing the sport. You think I got any answers to that? I mean, I'm like the guy standing in the circle just getting rocks thrown at him. So I don't got any answers to that. I don't know why it is the way it is. But I know that we can find a collective group of people to move one direction. I know we can do that. We just got to find them. So we got to hunt them down. We got to see who those people are for sure.
Yeah.
Um, on the truck side of things. So there's a comment here about trucks being a filler class. Have have you truck guys thought about like what you guys are asking for and trying to be like a main eventer and what that comes what the comes with that?
Like, I'm never going to speak for anybody else, but I will speak for myself. Yeah, I thought about that, and I know what that means, and I welcome it. We don't love if just because we're sitting behind a truck, we don't love derbying any less than name your national famous driver. We love it just as much. We want to be a part of it just as much. We're just as enthusiastic about it. And we want the opportunity to have that, that kind of exclusive feel of being a big deal. It's fun. It's rewarding. It reminds you of, hey, this is why I want to do this. And not only that, but I remember the effect that derbying had on me as a kid when I sat in the stands and watched for the first time and thought, man, I want to do that. That's awesome. That's so cool. We want to provide that for the other kids out there. We want to show that, hey, come join the trucks. We're just as fun. And, at the county fair level, there's a lot of different truck classes out there and different opportunities, but on the big stages where you get the most eyes and the most influence, we just don't get it for whatever reason. And I'll be honest, I really don't understand. Like, I'd love to hear from some of these promoters who might say things like, oh, there's just no interest. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I think there is. I think it's a matter of doing your job as a promoter to generate interest. And, it's a choice. It's always a choice. And hey, to each their own, I guess.
I mean, heck, I everything that you've done, to help promote trucks, I think is a start for sure. On the line of becoming like a headliner / main eventer. You guys ready for heats and feature? You guys ready for your own team show? What does that look like for you guys? Like, I'm interested to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah, I hear it all the time. Pretty much every guy I know, they ask about, well, we should have a team show. We should have, it'd be cool to run heats and features. I know back in the day, in the early 2000s, and even the mid 2000s, there were some county fair derbies around me where they had heats and features with trucks. And, I kind of got into the running side of things later in the game. And I said, really? Like, how many did you have show up? They're like, oh, there'd be 30, 40. I'm like, 30 or 40? What's happened? Why did that fall off so much? And, there's never a for sure answer to it, but, the temperature of the room right now, I can definitely tell you, is we want heats and features. We want to run the format, Dustin. We want to run something like that. We want that opportunity. And, if it fits, it fits, and maybe we're not quite there yet, from a number standpoint, but that's the goal, is to get there and to be a part of that same kind of a running order that you would see normally in the big cars or the compacts or the team shows and the heats and features kind of.
Hey, you want to talk about some excitement? You get those trucks running a format now. Shoo-wee. I'm gonna tell you right now, if someone's not there to see that, they're gonna miss a good one, because you guys are already wild enough, let alone to just tell you, hey, look, you only have to beat these 2 trucks and let's get it on. And you got 9, 12, 15 trucks out there. Oh man.
Yeah. And a funny story, I went to a fall show up in Fremont, Ohio this past year, and I didn't get a chance to run it because I had some engine issues that wouldn't allow me to be out there. So I got to actually sit and watch one. And it's been a minute since I've been able to sit in the stands and watch a truck heat. And I sat down in the front and it started, and just the violence that I felt from that track, it kind of took me back a little bit. I turned around and asked some people behind me, I'm like, is this normally how it is? And they're like, yep. And I'm like, wow. Like, imagine that on a bigger stage with, the format or a team event of some kind. I mean, you think cars are rocking. They are, they definitely are. And, compacts and full size cars, they can bring it. And so can we. And I'd tell anybody, if you don't believe it, I'll give you the keys to mine and you can come experience it for yourself. It's wild.
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you right now, the people that we work with at the fair, go ask the guys at the fair what their favorite, that help us out. Steve, again, I've heard him say it. The trucks are coming. These guys are nuts. Like, and our show's pretty intense already, with the cars and the format and everything that we do. But I mean, guys from the outside are looking at it. They're just like, dude, these guys are nuts. And I think that's a selling point. Like, you guys can sell that, and just own that kind of. That's the perception that the truck guys are, and gosh,
Yeah,
I just think it's a home run.
I agree. I think one of the drawbacks, or people are, I don't want to say drawbacks. I think one of the things that kind of hold some people back is they're like, well, we don't have the numbers. I think what some promoters need to keep in mind is that when you're talking about a full size truck versus a full size car, we're a car and a half out there. We take up a lot more real estate, and it's 15 trucks on the track is a full track. That's a lot going on, and so people think, oh, we need to have 30, we need to have 40, or it's not realistic, or it's not wanted, or it's not an attractive heat or a class. I don't agree with that. 15 trucks out there, beating the crap out of each other for 20-25 minutes. And to be accurate, that's how long our heats last. We're not out there for an hour, ever. Mm-hmm. 20-25 minutes is the longest I've ever seen. So when it's time to go, we go. And, afterwards, we're ready to go for the next one. And I'm always looking forward to the next one.
You make a really good point there that I haven't really thought about, because every time we put a truck class out, we say, hey, it's $2,500 based on 20 cars or 20 trucks or 25 trucks or whatever. Maybe that bar's too high. Maybe, like, you're right. Like, I haven't really ever thought about that. I've just always applied, what we need with cars in order to meet that payout. And then obviously we always cover some of the purse. So, where we need to be. Maybe the truck world isn't that. I've really thought about maybe the max that we need to put out there is, 15, or maybe it's 20. 20 is, the max of amount of trucks that we can have, because there is a limit to how many cars could be on the track, right. and it still be entertaining. So,
I mean, think about your show last year, with the trucks we had. What do we have, 13 or 14 or something like that? I think we had on the track last year.
Yeah, something like that.
I'll tell you, when I backed up and I went to get my spot to go start working, I turned around. You look behind you, it's just utter chaos behind you. Like, it isn't like some of these car heats where everybody kind of goes and turtles out to their little corner, and it's these, it's 20 minutes of deciding the pecking order and all this stuff. 30 seconds in, I'm turning around, I'm going, oh my gosh, like, where'd that guy go? Where'd that guy go? Like, it's just chaos. And, I don't think anybody would have ever said, oh, well, there was only 14 instead of 20 or 30. Like, I don't think anybody would have ever thought of that. They were just like, oh my gosh.
I never personally thought of that. I never personally thought, well, I was totally entertained. But until you said that, like, this is why these conversations have to happen. It never quite clicked to me, like, dude, a full field is probably 15. Like, maybe you should base your payout, the top payout on 15, not 20, because you get everything that you need with 15. Now, I just never, it started to click, like, because you're definitely not getting as many trucks as you are cars, but you don't really, do you need it?
I don't think so. I mean, look at last year's heat. You had a rollover, you had guys put on the wall, you had, steering, broken tires, you had the whole 9 yards. You had everything. You had everything that people want to see on the track, and you did it with 13 or 14 trucks out there. And it took 20. I don't even know how long that heat lasted. I don't think it was that long.
It probably wasn't.
And you got all that in that short amount of time. I mean, that's the entertainment you want. And people were, they almost like they're trying to catch their breath afterwards. Like, what just happened? Like, there's a lot going on, and that's what draws people in is, they don't want to sit there for the first 20 minutes and go, when's it going to start? Like, when's the action going to pick up? Like, I've never been in a truck heat where that's been the problem. I've never felt that way sitting behind the steering wheel and going, when's it going to start? It's always 3, 2, 1. It started. Like, uh-oh, who's coming after me? Where do I got to go? I better get moving, or you're done, or you're going to get taken out.
Yeah. And I mean, you never hear somebody say, hey, I'm going to go get a pop. It's the truck heat. I've never heard anyone say that. Hey, I'm going to the bathroom. It's the truck heat. They're not missing the truck heat. And heck, we know that. It just, honestly, man, it takes some conversation, some recognition some of the paying it forward stuff that you're doing here. I mean, to say, hey, look, we're going to make a statement, and then getting guys to stand behind you. You know, Brian, you've done a really, really good job of that. And I think you have a lot of respect of these truck guys, which is that's a rare thing, to have a respect across the board. I mean, just some of the comments that are coming in, you have that. So it just feels like a really good fit, to give these truck guys what they want and what they deserve.
Right. And ultimately, you know, if there's ever a truck heat that I've seen or watched that's not been fast or crazy, it's usually because we're at the mercy of the track conditions. You know, if it's muddy or if it's small or whatever. I mean, I think that's true of any class. But the guys that I run with and know and talk to and try to understand more than anything, like, what makes them tick. You know, what do you love about this class? You know, I want to push that for you. You know, I want to tell people about it, and you know, I want you to have what you deserve. Like, we all deserve it, and why not us? Why not now? And you know, I'm going to continue to do that. So.
No, you've done a really good job. You have the pulse of the truck world in your palm, and that's a really neat thing to see, and just a really neat thing that you're willing to pay it forward. So, and then you got your trophy. Don't be greedy now. You don't need another one. You've got your trophy. So
Yeah, I do. I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty proud of that thing. So I'll step aside and play a different role from now on, and get to watch the other guys get to go through that really cool victory lane celebration and be a part of that with them. And Justin Thomas reminds me that he's got 2 and I've only got 1.
2 is definitely better than 1.
Yeah, he's not wrong, and he got me there. But all right, bud, get back in the truck and come run some shows with me. We'll figure it out. But no, I want to see some other guys get to go through that too. I mean, I've never experienced that. I've talked about that with you before on this show. You know, it's just you almost don't know what to do. It's almost like Ricky Bobby, like, what do I do with my hands? You know, that kind of thing. He's retired. Yeah, I doubt it. But that victory lane thing was so much fun. It was so incredible, and it really made you feel like a big deal. And that's something that, you know, you and I have talked about as well. We need to make our champions feel like they're a bigger deal. You know, I remember back in the 90s when if you won a county fair, you were a legend. You know, you were the guy. And those guys are still talked about to this day. We need to make that a big deal again. Winning should be a big deal. It's not easy to do. It's hard. It's difficult. And I want the truck guys to feel that way when they go out and win Derby too, that they're just as big of a deal as anybody else.
Well, look, along with the organization and all that stuff that we talked about earlier, these things need to come too. We put way too much time and effort to not spend 5 minutes to celebrate that guy who just had the best luck that day, was just better than everybody that day. Just everything was right for him that day. Why would we not spend the time to celebrate that, you know?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, gone are the days of, you know, it seems like gone are the days of winning was the big deal. You know, it's like, oh, I won, so what? You know, or people are like, oh, did you win tonight? Or did you win that? I didn't even hear about it. I don't even know about it. Like, I mean, that's a tragedy, man. Like, you should be a big deal. Like, you earned it, whether you were lucky or not. We're all lucky when we win. Like, I've never won a Derby yet where I didn't have luck on my side, and you know, that's part of it. But you know, if you go out there and you earn it and you deserve it, show it. Be proud of it, and we're going to be proud of you for it. And that's what I want to do here.
You know, one thing that I've seen, and you feel this too, like you feel the energy. I've seen the victory lane celebrations through these 3 years progressively get a little more emotional, mean a little more celebratorial, whatever, if that's even a word. Like they're celebrating more. It's meaning more, like you're seeing it. And it really progressed into last year. I mean, in JT's class specifically, I mean, that thing, it was emotional. I'm up there trying to talk. I can't, Father's Day weekend. Heck, I got tears in my eyes. I mean, that's what we want to capture in those. And it felt like year after year. The first year, it was like people didn't really know what to do. They didn't know what, you know what I'm saying? You could feel the energy. And it's like, hey, look, you want to be a professional? Start acting like a professional, like act like you're the man. And they were like, okay, I'm the man, whatever. And then next year was like, okay, well, yeah, whoever wins is the man. Now, last year, it really felt like it took the turn like it's expected now. Like people expect to drive. And then we did the drive to victory lane last year and did it underneath the grandstands to make it a little more intimate. And I think that was a good decision. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when that heat was over for me, I can speak to my experience. So you already know this, and I'm not going to say too much, but the last year or two for me has been really rough from a personal standpoint. I've got a lot of issues. I'm going through a divorce. I've got custody issues, and I didn't get to have my kids with me there last year on Father's Day to be a part of that with me. So getting to drive that truck that I worked so hard to build and was so determined to get right, and I poured my heart into that thing. Um, to get to drive that off that track and then drive it to that victory lane and get to celebrate, it was like I was doing it for them, just as much as me. And, I can't even really fully explain what it meant, but I'm grateful. I'm just really grateful that I got to do that and be a part of that. And, I watched JT celebration. Like that man was just absolutely emotionally determined to be happy. It was the most intense thing I've seen in a long time, from a derby standpoint. Why would you not want to feel that? Like, why would you not want to feel it? In this world where there's so much negativity in everything we do and see, come on, like grab on to some happy and get with it. That's my thought. Really.
That's what it feels like the sport could be when it's organized is we get our time to shine. The guys in the victory lane, they get their time to shine, their moment. If we can create those moments, not just at, King of Ohio, but across the nation, collectively, not just a Triple D thing, just across the nation. I think everyone deserves it, man. And you put so much, as you mentioned, putting so much time and effort into these cars. It means something, and there's nothing wrong with showing a little emotion when you do win. You don't have to be the tough guy that says, "Oh yeah, it's just a win." No, man, it means something, and we want our job as a promoter is to put you on the biggest stage that we possibly can. One thing that we've been adamant about doing is we don't let people forget who wins. We just don't. We put it out there all the time. From the truck class to the front wheel drive class to the King class. I mean, we try to put it out there as much as we can. We're not letting people forget who has won our shows. And over the years, and it's not just last year, but over the years, that trophy is as recognizable as a trophy there possibly is. And there's a reason for that. We want that trophy when people show their trophy rooms. That's the King of Ohio trophy. Like, it's very recognizable.
And it's the first one people see when they come into my shop. And it's, people who come over, my family or friends that might come over and aren't necessarily derby people. They come into the shop and they look up and they go, "Whoa, look at that thing. What's that from?" And I get to tell them a story, and I get to share with them something that means a lot to me. And it's just it's a talking point, and it's memorable. And that's what it's supposed to be. That's what it's supposed to
be. Yeah, man, for sure. I mean, it seems like we're as close as ever of, with the talks and everything. Like it just feels right. It feels like we're heading the right direction, and it feels like more people are being receptive of having these conversations than ever. And it's just like, man, I think if everyone could the sky's the limit, guys. The sky is the limit on where the sport can go, and just takes a little group effort, a little effort from everybody. And man, it seems like it could be a fun ride.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the day when it does happen, and I'm excited for it. I really
And who knows? It might have already happened. It might be already in progress. Meaning, maybe the king, or maybe Blizzard Bash was the start of it, and it just takes more time. Maybe maybe it's already in progression, and we don't even know it. We're living in the moment so much. Maybe that is the progression to the next level, and maybe it's already started. But let's speed it up. Speed it up. Let's make it happen. And
Yeah.
I know things don't happen overnight, but damn, let's make it happen quick.
Right. I mean, I'm almost 40 years old, dude. Like, come on, let's go.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's a bunch of guys that are 50, 55, 60 that are like, man, I would love to, I just want to compete one more time on, the biggest stage. And
Yeah.
let's make sure they can.
Yeah. It's completely possible. I guess it's a choice. It's just a choice. And, people, they live in a different time where, a lot of people expect things to just happen or be given to them, or, whatever. And that's a product of what society has taught them. And, I think, I look back to when I grew up and knowing, my grandpa and my grandparents and things like that, all the stuff that they had to go through just to put food on the table. I mean, it's not insurmountable. That's real hardship. This is not. This is a choice to be great and to have something incredible. Why not? Yeah, why not?
And bring everybody up with you. Nobody's saying that everybody can't, can't come along. Come along with it. Join the movement. Talk about it. Be about it. Get people at these events. So.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Well, good stuff, man. Hey, look, I want to thank you again. For jumping on board on this side. I know you want to drive and you want to compete, but I think these guys deserve it, man, and that they deserve a voice in the room, and I know that you're that voice, and you're that voice not only here but across the nation, and a more than a great example, of that voice. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you seeing that in me and giving me the opportunity. If those truck guys are out there listening right now, there's going to be more to come. I'm going to put out my own podcast and talk about the truck class some more. We're going to talk about King of Ohio specific things. We'll have Q&A sessions, as far as the rules are concerned, to help them better navigate that. I believe in providing a professional experience as an inspector for them. And my goal is to make sure you get a stick, that your truck is legal, that your truck is safe, that you have a good time, and that you want to come back and do it again and bring somebody else with you the next time. Tell it to a buddy, hey, you ought to run this show with me. And that's how we do things, and I'm not an ego guy. I'm not better than anybody. I just want to help, and I want to help people get to the right place.
Well, look, man, I appreciate that, and I believe wholeheartedly in you, and I know these truck guys too. So, thank you once again.
All right, thanks, Dustin. I appreciate it.
Yep. See you guys.
See you.